Hello there, today I am here with another non-booktube review. For those of you who are new here, I will link the playlist of these down below. I'm just going to talk to you about a book that I read this month that I haven't heard spoken about elsewhere on booktube. Now this is a bit of a cheat because the reason that I got this book is because of booktube. It's one of the salt books that I bought on the back of doing my paddling in independent publishers, where I read a few salt books for the sake of my channel. However, I haven't heard anyone speak about this, which is strange to me because it seems like the kind of book that a lot of people on booktube would probably enjoy. That said, I did not enjoy this. It actually kind of left me really quite frustrated, and whereas last month I had the best non-booktube book I've had all year, this I would say is the worst one. I gave it 2 stars, which may be a little bit harsh, but I think the things that this book did wrong, it did really quite wrong. So the book I'm talking about is The Other World It Whispers by Stephanie Victoire, I think, or Victoire. This is a short story collection which I picked up because firstly it's got a quote from Kirsty Logan on it that says "a hungry, glorious fox-slinking book." And secondly, it's kind of a magical realism collection which looks at fairy tales, which obviously is very trendy. That's where my issues start with this. So I don't mind a well-written retelling of fairy tales. I quite enjoy that in a short story collection. I certainly gravitate more towards kind of mythical, magical based stories than I would say a realist short story collection. However, I think where to start? So I picked up this book because I loved the title, and I think, to be fair, the title is a good hint of the beauty of the writing in this book, and it's not the writing that I disliked, and that's why I kind of felt harsh giving it only a 2 stars, because the writing in this is good. But I think what this story collection does is it tries to jump on the bandwagon of having stories about myths and stories about fairy tales and stories that are magical realist for the sake of being magical realist, and I cannot stand that in a short story collection. This actually kind of reminded me of a book I read last year, which is The Doll's Alphabet by Camilla somebody. I can't remember, but I absolutely hated it because I think it was just magical realism for the sake of it. There was no point. And I've heard people saying that they don't like magical realism because it's kind of like clouds made of candy and the sun made of a lollipop, and it's kind of silly. And I don't think often that that is the case. I think most times I actually find that magical realism is a really fantastic way to put metaphor into stories and to help us understand the human condition, which is what I enjoy in my magical realism. But this is magical realism of the cotton cloud and lollipop sun variety. I think it's just a bit silly. I also find that it's difficult to talk about this collection because there are 3 stories, I would say, in the centre of this 9-story collection which are okay. But basically the stories to start, the first 2 stories are just gratuitously about fairy tale references. They didn't have any real drive or narrative, and I didn't find that the fairy tale references actually added anything at all. The 3rd story in the collection is one of these stories that's just magical realism for silly sake. It's a story about a ball of animals where one of the animals gets killed, and it's kind of like a masquerade animal ball. I don't know, it was just silly. There was no overall drive or reason for it to be like that. I just no. The stories that I enjoyed I want to talk to you about because I did enjoy them, and as I say, the writing in this is good, so I'm going to read you some out. So the first one I enjoyed was The Cemetery Pilgrimage, which is about a man who has basically found a spirit guide who has said that he can resurrect the skills of famous artists and creators in exchange for his soul, effectively, but he will only have 5 years to live, and it kind of looks at the decision this man makes and which shovels that he's interested in using. I loved the style that this story is written in, and I think there was some really beautiful passages, so I'm going to read you one here. He remembers his first wife, Francesca, never having to wear makeup at all. Her skin looked new every morning on the pillow next to him, her left dimple accenting her sleepy smile. He'd focused on that dimple during the days she looked sick, when the cancer started to show itself. That dimple, that little mark of youth and happiness, could not be taken away. So it is a very poetic collection. I also enjoyed a story in here called The Bouquet Witch, which is about a girl who finds out that she has sort of powers with witchcraft, and she goes into business with a girl that I think she resurrected. I would have to reread it to completely remember, but I believe she resurrected this girl. They've gone into business and they basically sell bouquets to people who have had their heart broke. And they sell these bouquets so that the heartbroken people can effectively kill the people who have broken their hearts, which I thought was quite interesting. And there's also one called the Earthbound Express, which is effectively a train that you go on when you die. It's kind of like an in-between stage for your life on Earth and your resurrection. I thought that was quite sweet. But those are the only 3 stories that I half enjoyed, and to be honest, all of them had promise, and as I say, I liked the writing and I perhaps liked the concepts, but I also felt that they were kind of lacking. So ultimately, as I say, this was 2 stars for me. I kind of didn't enjoy it. It kind of frustrated me. These are definitely stories that for me just reeked of style over substance, sadly. I'm really disappointed, and I do feel bad saying it, but I've got to be honest, I just couldn't find much to enjoy in this collection. Please let me know if you've read it down below, if you found anything different. I would say I'm glad I read this. I think I would stick up more stories from her in the future. I know she's working on a novel. This is obviously a debut collection, and it reads very much like a debut collection. I think she's an author to probably look out for, but she's a very raw talent in this book, and I don't quite think it worked out, sadly. So I'll see you next time. Bye!